So we got to kind of ask ourselves really whether these kind of concentrations of data and advanced computational prowess and capital are necessarily always a bad thing. I mean, one of the kind of most powerful economic logics that that digital technology has unleashed is the one where kind of data and platforms feed into each other. So you create a platform. It begins to produce data, which improves the platform. The platform gets bigger. The platform begins to enjoy platform effects, meaning that really its kind of increase in size gives it an exponential increase in value. So it's far more valuable to be on Facebook, to be on High Five, through the sheer reason that there are more people on Facebook. Mm-hmm. If you want to get your video seen, you put it on YouTube. If you want to sell something or buy something, you do it on Amazon. And this is a kind of cycle of dominance, and it kind of means that naturally we don't have markets emerging in each of these new areas of economic digital life. We have one or two players. We have a monopoly or a duopoly in almost all of them. As we try and kind of politically challenge these concentrations of data and in a sense break them up because we're kind of instinctively nervous about these things becoming too big and too powerful, in other parts of the world, these concentrations are actually embraced. And that must be, I think, one of the reasons why Europe hasn't created our own kind of tech unicorn or decacorn yet.
Okay, so that all sounds really gloomy. What would a good version of the future look like, and what can we do to make sure that we get that one and not the gloomy one?
There's this essay question which is often posed, which is kind of how, is there going to be more liberation and empowerment, or is there going to be more kind of control and oppression than ever before? And to be honest with you, I think that we're probably going to have to just live in a world where there's more of both happening, more than there ever was before. And kind of become more comfortable with there both being all these kind of astonishing opportunities for us all to do good to one another. And there's going to be all these new potent forms of control and injury. And they're going to be wrapped up all together in basically people finding, through technology, new ways of doing the things that they've always done, both be selfless and kind and cruel and evil all at once. I think at the moment it very much feels like we are constantly groping back to the kind of toolkit that we had last time we need to do this. Oh, we need more regulation. We need maybe to create a professional body of algorithm makers. A Royal College of Algorithmists. I think I might have even recommended that on the last podcast. And we need more primary legislation. And we need to have greater public scrutiny. And my least favourite of all of them, we need to have a public debate. My God, I mean, the number of it's so easy to say. I mean, at a time when we need to move quicker than ever before, having a public debate on all these issues simply can't be the answer alone. We need to find a new kind of toolkit. I don't think we can simply grope back to those kind of problem solvers of the past. How do you make an algorithm transparent is unclear to me, and whether a Royal College of Algorithmists will control a Silicon Valley tech giant, I think is also unclear to me. I think there needs to be a whole new series of ways in which we try and enforce the rules now. I don't know what that full toolkit looks like, but there are some things that emerge and they look like they have to be part of it. Kind of ethics by design as a principle, I think, is going to be absolutely key. Also key will be, I think, kind of the movement of a lot of how tech is built into public life. So I cannot see in 5 years' time how tech developers will essentially be subject to their own private moral determinations around how a lot of tech is built and whether a lot of tech is good or bad. I mean, that's not how we build cars. That's not how we build planes. That's not how we build almost all the technology which is important to us. It's subject to a series of publicly understood and enforced rules, which tries to make it safe and tries to make it pro-social.
And there's a similar kind of story to the rise of the car. When it first came, it was a death trap. People were really worried, and it took 70 years before we had seatbelts, and we really had a piece of technology that really helped us get around and didn't kill as many people. So we shouldn't expect that this even more radical new form of technology is going to be solved, in a couple of years. So it's going to be a long journey.
Or the firearm. I mean, sometimes states can act really coercively and say, like, this piece of technology just simply isn't going to be available for you to use. We are just going to control this. States can do that. They do have a monopoly on the legal system, and they do have a monopoly on legitimate violence. So, and right at this moment where it really feels like in states are being undermined in so many different ways, I think eventually they're going to react to all this kind of stuff.
Like, what effect could all of this have on our democracy, which already in some ways feels quite fragile?
I mean, I think there is an emerging argument that technology and democracy are kind of inherently hostile to one another. I've certainly heard a kind of a whole spree during this we're living through a tech clash at the moment, right? I mean, there's all kinds of journalists and writers that have kind of violently swung from the kind of 2012 Tahrir Square, the internet's going to liberate the world position, to the Cambridge Analytica, Edward Snowden position, that we've created this kind of vast kind of surveillance manipulation machinery, which is going to destroy democracy. I frankly think those arguments are a little bit overheated. I think democracy has endured stiffer challenges than the digital revolution. But I do think that, again, I'm going to go back to my point around speed. I mean, I really do think that I don't think it challenges like people's basic love of and support of a political system which they can be the authors of. I mean, I don't think any more people are kind of inherently hostile to democracy now in the UK than there have been in the past. But I do think that more and more people think that it's a system that isn't really working for them, and it's a system that isn't able to deliver the kind of country that they want to live in. And I think that is because in area after area now, it just can't act with the speed that it needs to. So I think sooner or later, we're going to reopen a very, very old question, which is how does democracy actually work? What are the actual processes and steps that you put into place to put a people in charge? The last time we really discussed this was in 1649, just after we'd cut the head off Charles I. And the answer that time around was to create sovereign parliaments, to literally represent the people in a convenient way, all in one room, kind of representative democracy. And that's been the form of democracy that we and most of the world really, that is democratic, has lived with ever since. Around the world now, I can see the kind of emergence of new kinds of politicians with new kinds of thinking, some of them drawn from the free software movement and the open source community. But there are plenty of others. Digital Democrats, I'd call them broadly, who want to reopen that question and think that there is no reason why we have to think that in the 21st century we need to create democracy in the same way that as we resolved it in the 17th.